The life of a medieval knight is a captivating subject steeped in tradition, valor, and a profound sense of duty. To fully comprehend the world of these armored warriors, we must journey back in time to the Middle Ages, a period spanning roughly from the 5th to the 15th century. Imagine a world of towering stone castles, expansive open fields, and the resounding clatter of steel on steel reverberating through the air. This was the realm of the medieval knight, a world defined by chivalry, warfare, and the intricate social hierarchy of feudalism. Knights were typically of noble birth, belonging to the aristocratic class that governed the land. They underwent rigorous training in the art of warfare, expected to uphold the virtues of bravery, honor, and unwavering loyalty to their liege lord. However, the life of a knight was not solely confined to combat. It was a multifaceted existence that encompassed a profound understanding of social norms, a commitment to religious duties, and a strong sense of community and responsibility. The path to knighthood commenced early, often when a boy was just 7 years old. At this tender age, the aspiring knight would depart from his family home and embark on his training as a page in the household of a lord. This formative period was dedicated to acquiring the essential skills required for knighthood, including horseback riding, weaponry, and hunting. But his education extended beyond physical prowess. The page would also receive instruction in reading, writing, music, and the Christian faith. He would delve into the codes of chivalry, the significance of honor, and the expectations of his social class. After 7 years as a page, around the age of 14, the young man would transition to the role of a squire. This marked a more advanced stage in his training, where he would serve directly under a knight, assuming the responsibilities of shield-bearer and assistant. This pivotal phase in a knight's formation provided him with first-hand experience of the knightly lifestyle, shaping his character and preparing him for the challenges ahead. He would accompany his knight to tournaments and battles, learning about strategy and tactics and understanding the realities of warfare. The squire would also take on more responsibilities, often caring for his knight's horse and equipment. The life of a squire was not easy, but it was a necessary stepping stone to knighthood. During this time, the young man would truly prove his worth and show that he had the potential to become a knight. His skills, character, and understanding of his role would be tested, and only those who passed these tests would be considered for the honor of knighthood. The final step in a knight's journey was the dubbing ceremony, a solemn and significant event that marked his official entry into the ranks of knighthood. The ceremony was often conducted by the knight's liege lord, who would bestow upon him the title of knight, usually by tapping him on the shoulder with a sword. This was an incredibly important moment in a knight's life, symbolizing his transition from squire to knight and his acceptance into the chivalric community. Once knighted, the warrior would lead a life of service and duty, bound by the codes of chivalry to protect the weak, serve his lord faithfully, and uphold the honor of his name. He would be expected to demonstrate bravery in battle, wisdom in council, and a deep commitment to his religious duties. The life of a medieval knight was certainly one of privilege, but it was also one of great responsibility and sacrifice. To be a knight was to embody the ideals of chivalry, to serve one's lord and community with unwavering dedication, and to navigate the complex social and political landscape of the feudal system. As we delve deeper into the world of the medieval knight, we will explore the many facets of their lives, from their training and duties to their role in society and their influence on the development of the Middle Ages. The life of a knight was far more than just the clashing of swords and jousting tournaments. It was a life of honor, duty, and unwavering commitment to a set of ideals that continue to inspire us to this day. So, let's embark on a captivating journey into this intriguing era and unravel the true essence of what it was like to be a medieval knight. In the early life of a knight, much like the lives of many young boys during the medieval period, a strong emphasis was placed on training for warfare. From a very young age, usually around 7, noble-born boys were sent to live with a lord as pages. Here they embarked on a rigorous education in the arts of war and chivalry. This was not an easy or short journey. The training of a knight typically lasted until the age of 21, a lengthy 14-year period. The initial years were dedicated to fundamental physical training. Young pages learned to ride horses, handle weapons, and underwent a rigorous physical regimen to build strength and endurance. They also received lessons in chivalry, the code of conduct that governed the behavior of knights. This code encompassed principles such as honor, courage, loyalty, and respect for women. These lessons were not merely theoretical, they were deeply ingrained in the daily lives of knights. Even at this early stage, pages were expected to adhere to this code, and any deviation was met with severe punishment. As the boys grew older and their skills improved, they progressed to the stage of becoming squires. This marked a significant advancement from being a page. Squires served as personal assistants to knights, assuming greater responsibilities and participating in actual combat training. They were taught to wield various weapons, including swords, lances, and bows. Squires practiced combat tactics, learned how to wear and maintain armor, and even received training in the art of jousting. Despite the rigorous and demanding nature of their training, squires were not devoid of moments of leisure. Squires, young men in training to become knights, were often allowed to participate in grand tournaments. These events combined the excitement of combat with the spectacle of a festival, serving as important social gatherings where squires could showcase their skills and earn recognition. Tournaments provided a safe environment for squires to hone their combat abilities, as the weapons used were usually blunted. Beyond training for war, squires received a well-rounded education. They learned reading, writing, and arithmetic, as well as the principles of feudalism, the political and social system of medieval Europe. Squires were expected to understand and uphold these principles. They also learned courtly etiquette, including how to behave in the presence of lords and ladies, speak eloquently, and conduct themselves with dignity and grace. After years of rigorous training and education, a squire would finally be ready to become a knight. This momentous occasion was marked by a grand ceremony known as the accolade. Dressed in a white tunic symbolizing purity and a red robe representing the blood he was willing to shed for his lord, the squire knelt before his lord. The lord then tapped him on the shoulders with a sword, officially bestowing upon him the title of knight. Once a knight, he was expected to serve his lord in battle, protect the weak and defenseless, and uphold the principles of chivalry. As a reward for his service, a knight received a fief, a plot of land, and was responsible for managing it and its inhabitants. Knights also participated in tournaments, which provided entertainment and an opportunity to improve their combat skills. The life of a medieval knight was not easy, but it was one of great honor and responsibility. From a young age, knights were trained to be warriors, leaders, and upholders of the social order. Medieval knights were expected to live by a strict code of conduct that demanded courage, honor, and loyalty. Despite the hardships and dangers they faced, they were respected and admired figures in society. Knights embodied the medieval ideal of the warrior aristocrat, combining martial prowess with noble values. Their lives were shaped by the unique challenges and responsibilities of their position, transcending their role as mere warriors. They were symbols of the values and ideals of their time. The life of a medieval knight was one of duty, honor, and sacrifice, dedicated to serving others and upholding the principles of chivalry. As we delve deeper into their lives, we explore the intricacies of their rigorous training. This journey, not to be taken lightly or a short one, began in childhood and culminated in a life of service and honor. The sons of nobles often started their training as early as 7 years old, under the guidance of a more experienced knight, usually a close relative or a knight in service to their family. These mentors served as their guides through the early years of training. During this period, known as pagehood, young pages lived in the household of their mentors, learning basic skills such as horse riding, hunting, and combat. Beyond physical training, young pages were expected to learn about chivalric codes, religious doctrines, and social etiquette of the time. They served in the household, gaining humility, obedience, and practical understanding of household management. As they grew older and more skilled, typically around the age of 14, they graduated to the rank of squire. Now their training intensified. They would practice with various weapons, including swords, lances, and bows. They would learn to fight in armor, joust, and participate in mock battles. The squires also took care of their knights' equipment, teaching them the importance of maintaining their gear in top condition. They would sharpen swords, polish armor, and care for horses. However, their duties extended beyond the battlefield. They served as personal attendants to their knights, assisting them with everything from dressing to eating. This close relationship allowed them to observe and emulate their mentors. The squires would also accompany their knights to tournaments and battles, gaining first-hand experience of their future role. After years of rigorous training, the squire would finally be ready for knighthood. The ceremony was solemn and religious, often held in a church. The night before, the squire underwent a ritual purification called the Vigil of Arms, praying and fasting to prepare spiritually for the responsibilities ahead. On the ceremony day, the squire wore a white tunic symbolizing purity, a red robe signifying nobility, and a black doublet representing mortality. Kneeling before the lord or knight who would dub them, the squire was tapped on each shoulder with a sword, a practice known as the accolade. This action transformed the squire into a knight, ready to serve their lord and protect their land. The path to knighthood was long and arduous, but it molded these young boys into men of honor, courage, and skill. They were not just warriors, but also protectors of the weak, upholders of justice, and embodiments of the chivalric codes. Life as a knight was not easy, but it was filled with purpose and respect. A life many aspired to, but few achieved. As we delve deeper into the captivating world of the medieval knight, we embark on a journey through their life, exploring the duties and responsibilities that accompanied the title. We'll uncover the challenges they faced, the pivotal role they played in shaping society, and the enduring legacy they left behind. Our exploration begins in the heart of the knight's adolescence, a transformative period marked by the transition from page to squire. At the age of 14, a page would undergo rigorous physical training and immerse himself in the codes of chivalry, laying the foundation for his eventual knighthood. This transition was not a mere formality. It required the recommendation of his knight mentor, who would only grant it if he deemed the young man ready. Readiness was assessed not only on physical prowess, but also on the squire's understanding and adherence to the chivalric code. Upon becoming a squire, the young man was assigned to a knight, serving as his personal aide, alongside his continued studies in reading, writing, music, and chivalric codes. The squire embarked on a more intense physical regimen to prepare for the demands of warfare. He learned to ride while wearing armor, wield a sword, and use a lance, mastering the techniques of the mounted charge and the subsequent hand-to-hand combat. Additionally, he acquired the skills of horse care, recognizing the knight's most valued companion in battle. During this formative period, the squire also participated in tournaments, not only as an observer, but also as a participant, gaining valuable experience and honing his skills. Tournaments were grand affairs, often attended by nobility from far and wide. The squire would assist his knight, carrying his weapons and even standing in for him if the knight couldn't compete. These tournaments weren't just about the marshal's process. They were also social occasions where the codes of chivalry were displayed and reinforced. The squire would observe the knight's interactions with his peers, his treatment of those of lower status, and his conduct with women, especially the ladies of the court. Through these observations, the squire learned that being a knight wasn't just about being a warrior. It also meant being a diplomat, a leader, and a figure of moral authority. A squire's training extended beyond the physical and social aspects. They were also taught the arts of strategy and tactics, learning how to command troops in battle, lay siege to a castle, and defend one. They studied the great battles of the past and the commanders who led them, absorbing the lessons they offered. Being a squire was a challenging time, often marked by long hours, hard work, and intense discipline. However, it was also a time of camaraderie, as the squire developed close relationships with the other squires in the service of the same knight. They trained together, learned together, and often competed against each other, all under the watchful eye of their knight mentor. The transition from squire to knight wasn't guaranteed. It was an honor that had to be earned. The squire had to prove that they had not only the physical ability, but also the character to bear the title of knight. Only then would they be considered for the accolade, the ceremonial dubbing that marked the passage from squire to knight. As the sun begins to set on the squire's adolescence, we find ourselves at the threshold of the next stage of their journey. We have followed them from their early years as a page through their rigorous training as a squire, and now we stand on the brink of their transformation into a knight. But that's a tale for another time, another journey into the heart of the medieval world. In our next section, we'll explore the ceremony of the accolade, the momentous occasion that marked the squire's transition into knighthood. We'll delve into the rituals, the symbolism, and the expectations that accompanied this elevation in status. But for now, let's take a moment to reflect on the journey so far, appreciating the dedication, discipline, and determination that led us here. As the day transitions into night, let's dream of knights and chivalry, of honor and duty, of a world long past but never forgotten. As we conclude this section, let the soothing rhythm of this narrative lull you into a peaceful state of relaxation. Let the weight of the day melt away as you imagine the life of a medieval squire, his days filled with rigorous training and his nights spent under the watchful eyes of his knight mentor. As you drift closer to sleep, hold on to this journey into the past and let it guide you into a night of restful dreams. As the sun rises over the horizon, marking the beginning of another day in the Middle Ages, our young knight in training, now a squire, awakens from his slumber. He rises from a simple wooden bed, his body aching from the previous day's intense training. The modest room he occupies is equipped with only a bed, a chest for his belongings, and a small table. A single window allows the morning light to filter in, casting long shadows across the room. His day begins before the rest of the manor stirs, starting with chores. These were not merely a means of keeping the squire occupied, but were also designed to build character and instill a strong work ethic. He would tend to the horses, clean the stables, polish armor, and maintain weapons. Each task was a lesson in responsibility, demonstrating the importance of caring for one's equipment, a lesson that could mean the difference between life and death on the battlefield. As dawn transitions into morning, the squire joins his knight for breakfast. Meals are simple, often comprising bread, cheese, and occasionally meat or fish. This is also a time for the knight to impart wisdom and knowledge to his squire. They engage in discussions about combat strategies, chivalric codes, and the realm's politics. The knight, serving as both mentor and role model, plays a crucial role in shaping the squire into a knight. After breakfast, the squire meticulously prepares the knight's armor and weapons for the day. This requires a keen eye and steady hand, ensuring each piece of armor is polished and fitted correctly, and that the weapons are sharp and well balanced. Any slight error could compromise the knight's safety, so the squire painstakingly ensures everything is in perfect order. Afterward, the squire joins the other squires and knights in the training yard. The air is filled with the clanging of steel, the grunts of exertion, and the shouts of instructors. Here the squire learns the arts of war, swordsmanship, archery, horsemanship, and medieval combat techniques. Training is rigorous and demanding, pushing the squire to his limits. However, with each passing day, he grows stronger, faster, and more skilled. In the afternoon, after a brief respite for lunch, the squire resumes training. He practices his skills in mock battles, honing his abilities in a safe environment. These mock battles are not mere play, they are rehearsals for the real battles that lie ahead. The squire learns how to maneuver in armor, react under pressure, and work effectively in a team. As day transitions into evening, the squire returns to his chores, ensuring everything is in order for the following day. He then joins his knight for dinner, another opportunity for learning and discussion. After dinner, the squire has a brief period of free time. Some squires would use this time to hone their skills, while others would engage in games or storytelling. Despite the demanding schedule, camaraderie among the squires was strong as they shared a mutual understanding of the challenges they faced. As the night fell, the squire would retire to his room, reflecting on the day's events and considering what he had learned and what he needed to improve. Exhausted but satisfied, he would drift off to sleep, ready to face another day of challenges and learning. Thus, the life of a medieval squire was a cycle of hard work, discipline, and constant learning. It was a demanding existence, but one that prepared him for the responsibilities and challenges of knighthood. The road was long and arduous, but for those who persevered, the reward was the honor and prestige of becoming a knight. As we continue our journey through the life of a medieval knight, Let us remember the dedication and perseverance of these young men who endured rigorous training in the pursuit of chivalry and honor. In the cold pre-dawn light, our young knight embarked on his first true test of valor, his first battle. Clad in his newly earned suit of armor, he mounted his trusty steed, the weight of his sword a comforting presence at his hip. The air was thick with anticipation, and the ground beneath him vibrated with the restless energy of hundreds of armored men, preparing for the chaos that was about to unfold. As the sun emerged from the horizon, casting long shadows over the shifting sea of steel, our knight, not yet fully a man, experienced the grim reality of his chosen path. Battle, he quickly learned, was not the romanticized clash of honor and glory he had imagined. It was a brutal, chaotic, and terrifying ordeal, a dangerous dance of steel and horseflesh where a single misstep could spell the end. Despite the terror and chaos, the young knight did his duty, fighting doggedly with all the skills he had honed over years of rigorous training. He fights not only for his own survival, but also for the honor of his lord and the safety of his homeland. He quickly learns that the battlefield is not a place for individual glory, but a place where teamwork and discipline reign supreme. Each knight is a cog in the grand machine of war, and each has a specific role to play. After surviving his first battle, our knight returns home, transformed. The naive boy who left is replaced by a battle-hardened warrior who has tasted the bitter reality of war and emerged stronger for it. He carries with him the scars of battle, both physical and mental, as constant reminders of the price he has paid for his knighthood. As years pass, the knight's life becomes a cycle of training, service, and occasional warfare. He lives by a strict code of chivalry, a set of moral and social rules that govern his every action. He is expected to be the epitome of virtue, loyal, courteous, generous, and brave. He is the protector of the weak, the champion of justice, and the defender of his lord's lands. In times of peace, the knight's life revolves around service and duty. He acts as the lord's right hand, carrying out his will and ensuring the smooth functioning of his lands. He oversees the training of new squires, ensuring that the next generation of knights is prepared to bear the burden of knighthood. Additionally, he serves as a judge, resolving disputes among the common folk and upholding justice. However, being a knight is not solely about duty and warfare. There is also time for leisure and enjoyment. Tournaments are a popular pastime for knights, providing an opportunity to showcase their martial prowess in a less perilous environment than the battlefield. These grand spectacles are filled with music, feasting, and merriment. Knights engage in jousting, archery, and melee combat, competing for glory and the favor of the ladies. Speaking of ladies, courtly love holds significant importance in a knight's life. Knights expected to be courteous and chivalrous towards women, treated them with respect and admiration. They often dedicated their victories in tournaments and battles to unattainable ladies, often due to their high social status or marital status. This unrequited love was seen as a noble pursuit, a testament to a knight's dedication and virtue. As the knight aged, the rigors of his duties and the toll of numerous battles weighed heavily on him. His youthful vigor gave way to the stoic endurance of a seasoned veteran. Despite the hardships, he continued, driven by duty and honor, ever the paragon of chivalry and virtue. In his twilight years, he retired to a life of peace, passing on his duties to a younger generation. Yet he remained a knight until the end. His life was a testament to the ideals of chivalry and the harsh realities of the medieval world. He may no longer wear armor or wield a sword, but he carried with him the indomitable spirit of the knight, forged in the fires of battle and tempered by a lifetime of duty and service. The life of a medieval knight, as we've seen, was one of duty, honor, and hardship. It was a life chosen by few, but respected by many. It encapsulated the spirit of the medieval age, a time of great turmoil and change, a time when the ideals of chivalry and the reality of war coexisted in a delicate balance. Despite its many challenges, it was filled with moments of glory, courage, and honor. These moments continue to capture our imagination and inspire us today. As we delve deeper into the daily life of a medieval knight, we shift our focus from the ceremonial aspects of knighthood and the lengthy process of becoming a knight to a more personal perspective, the knight's code of chivalry. Chivalry, a complex system of ideals and expectations, was not merely a set of rules or laws but a way of life that shaped every aspect of a knight's existence, from personal relationships to conduct on the battlefield. Originating from the French word chevalier, meaning horseman, chivalry encompassed a multifaceted code of conduct. Knights were expected to demonstrate courage in battle, loyalty to their lord and peers, and a sense of fairness and generosity towards those less fortunate. These expectations were deeply intertwined with a knight's social standing and reputation, as their honor and societal value were measured by their adherence to these chivalric principles. Courage, for instance, transcended physical bravery, encompassing the willingness to confront fear, uncertainty, and intimidation. Knights were expected to face danger head-on, whether it involved an enemy on the battlefield, a moral dilemma, or a personal challenge. This courage extended beyond the physical realm into the realm of ideals, demanding that knights stand up for what was right, even when unpopular or risky. Loyalty, too, was a multifaceted virtue. Knights owed loyalty to their lord, fellow knights, family, and the church. This loyalty was not blind or unquestioning, it was a two-way street. Just as knights were expected to serve their lord faithfully, so too was the lord expected to treat his knights with respect and fairness. This reciprocal relationship formed the backbone of medieval society, with each individual understanding their place and responsibilities. Fairness and generosity were perhaps the most outwardly visible aspects of the chivalric code. Knights were expected to be just in their dealings with others, show mercy to defeated opponents, and provide for those less fortunate than themselves. This expectation extended beyond mere charity, embodying a commitment to justice and compassion. Knights were expected to wield their power and influence to rectify wrongs and uphold justice. The code of chivalry extended to their personal relationships as well. Knights were expected to demonstrate respect and courtesy towards women, a concept that evolved into the romanticized notion of courtly love. This code dictated that a knight should treat his lady with the same reverence and devotion he showed to his lord. However, this idealized version of chivalry was not always the reality. As with any societal standard, there were those who fell short of the ideal. There were knights who were cruel, selfish, or cowardly. There were knights who abused their power, betrayed their lord, or failed to uphold the standards of fairness and generosity. Nevertheless, it is crucial to remember that the code of chivalry was not a legal system. It was an ideal, a vision of how a knight should behave. It was a standard to strive for, even if it was not always achieved. For many knights, the pursuit of this ideal was a lifelong journey, a constant striving to embody the virtues of courage, loyalty, fairness, and generosity. As we delve deeper into the life of a medieval knight, we will witness how this code of chivalry not only shaped the knight's personal life, but also influenced the broader world of medieval Europe. For now, take a moment to reflect on the values and ideals encapsulated in the code of chivalry. Imagine what it would be like to live by such a code, to strive each day to embody these virtues. As you do, allow your mind to drift back to the medieval world, a world of knights and nobles, of castles and courts, of loyalty and honor. Let the sounds of that world fill your mind, the clatter of armor, the neighing of horses, the distant tolling of a bell. Allow these sounds to lull you into a state of peaceful relaxation as we continue our journey into the life of a medieval knight. In the life of a medieval knight, the stage of squirehood served as a crucial bridge between early training as a page and the eventual attainment of knighthood. As a squire, young noblemen in training were entrusted with more intricate tasks and responsibilities, and their education took on a practical and hands-on approach. This period of a knight's life held immense significance, as it was during these formative years that the foundational skills, knowledge, and values of knighthood were deeply ingrained, shaping the individual who would soon take the solemn vows of chivalry. Around the age of 14, the young boy, once a page, would be elevated to the esteemed status of squire. This advancement was typically marked by a simple yet symbolic ceremony during which the boy was presented with a sword belt by his lord or master. While the sword belt served a practical purpose in its use, it also held immense symbolic weight, representing the martial responsibilities that the squire was expected to shoulder. It stood as a visual reminder of the path of courage, strength, and honor that lay ahead. As a squire, the young man would become the steadfast companion of a knight, serving not only as his diligent assistant in daily tasks, but also as his trusted attendant in battle. His responsibilities extended to maintaining the knight's armor, weapons, and horse, ensuring that everything was in pristine condition. This intimate knowledge of the tools of a knight's trade would prove invaluable when he himself would eventually take up the mantle of knighthood. During this stage, training in martial combat intensified. The squire would engage in daily practice of horse riding, archery, and swordsmanship under the vigilant guidance of his mentor. He would also participate in mock battles and tournaments, gaining first-hand experience of real combat. These rigorous exercises were designed not only to hone the squire's physical abilities, but also to instill qualities of bravery, resilience, and strategic thinking. However, the life of a squire was not solely focused on physical training and combat. It encompassed a broader range of experiences and responsibilities that contributed to the development of a well-rounded individual. There was a significant emphasis on education and character development during the squirehood. The squire continued his lessons in reading, writing, and arithmetic, studying the Bible, classical philosophers, and the principles of chivalry. He also learned about the feudal system, the code of conduct for knights, and the traditions and customs of the court. The squire's character was considered as important, if not more so, than his physical prowess. He was expected to embody virtues like honesty, loyalty, generosity, and modesty. He was taught to respect all, especially women, and uphold justice and fairness. His primary duty was to protect the weak and innocent and serve his lord and king faithfully. Squirehood was not solely about work. There was time for recreation and socializing. The squire engaged in popular pastimes like hunting and falconry, attended feasts and dances, and learned to navigate courtly social dynamics. These experiences honed his manners and social skills, preparing him for the challenges of courtly life. The duration of squirehood varied, generally lasting until the age of 21. If the squire demonstrated his worth through skills, character, and conduct, he was eligible for knighthood. The transition from squire to knight was marked by a grand ceremony called the accolade, where the squire was formally dubbed a knight by his lord, or a high-ranking knight. In conclusion, squirehood was a crucial period in a medieval knight's life. It was a time of intense learning, growth, and transformation. During these years, the boy became a man, the trainee became a warrior, and the follower became a leader. The values, skills, and qualities instilled during this formative stage would guide the knight throughout his life, influencing not only his battlefield prowess, but also his conduct in the court and his interactions with others. In the subsequent section, we will delve into the various facets of knighthood, encompassing the solemn vows, the roles and responsibilities, and the challenges and rewards that await. As we continue our exploration of the life of a medieval knight, we have arrived at the evening when we examine the knightly tournaments. These were not mere idle pastimes, but held a significant place in the social fabric of the medieval era. The origins of knighthood tournaments can be traced back to the 11th century, when they were initially simple military exercises designed to train knights for war. However, over time, they evolved into elaborate spectacles that captivated the attention of all social classes. Knights from different regions of the kingdom and even from other countries would gather to participate in these tournaments, which were often held to commemorate significant events such as royal weddings, coronations, or victories over adversaries. The tournament ground, or lists, was a large open space typically situated on the outskirts of a town or castle. It was here that knights engaged in various forms of combat, with the ultimate objective of showcasing their martial skills and gallantry. The most renowned of these contests was the joust. Two knights would charge at each other on horseback, each attempting to knock the other from his steed with a lance. The victor would then proceed to face other challenges in a series of rounds until a final champion was declared. However, jousting was not the sole form of combat in these tournaments. There were also melee combats, where teams of knights would engage in foot-to-foot combat using a diverse array of weapons. These encounters could be as chaotic and brutal as real battles, and injuries, even fatalities, were not uncommon. Despite the inherent risks, knights eagerly participated in these tournaments. Victory not only bestowed honor and prestige, but also offered substantial rewards in the form of money, land, or valuable objects. Furthermore, these tournaments served as a platform for knights to showcase their bravery and skill to potential patrons and benefactors. Beyond combat and rivalry, these tournaments held social significance. Nobility and commoners alike attended, and everyone participated in the festivities. Feasts, music, dancing, and other forms of entertainment filled the air. Ladies of the court played a crucial role, often presenting prizes to the victors and declaring the most admired knight the Queen of Love and Beauty by the most distinguished lady present. These tournaments were not solely about combat and rivalry. They also reinforced the chivalric code that knights were expected to uphold. Knights were expected to fight honorably, respect their opponents, and demonstrate courage and loyalty. In fact, any knight who displayed dishonorable behavior could face disqualification or even banishment from future tournaments. As we've seen, the life of a medieval knight encompassed more than just warfare and duty. It was also about the pursuit of honor, glory, and personal achievement, and the tournaments provided an ideal platform for this. They reflected the values and ideals of the time. Despite the brutality and danger involved, they remained a popular and enduring feature of medieval society. This concludes our exploration of the life of a medieval knight for this evening. As you drift off into sleep, let your mind wander through the grandeur and excitement of a medieval tournament. Imagine the thunderous hooves, the clash of armor, and the jubilant cheers of the crowd. Picture the vibrant colors of the knights' shields and banners, the gleaming steel of their weapons, and the graceful ladies observing from the stands. Let these images transport you to a time of chivalry and valor. May they inspire dreams of grand adventures and heroic deeds. Good night, and until next time, may your dreams be filled with the gallant knights and fair ladies of the medieval world. As we delve into the life of a medieval knight, we find ourselves in the heart of the feudal system. This societal structure resembled a pyramid, with the king at the top, followed by nobles, knights, and then serfs or peasants at the bottom. As the second script block begins, we turn our attention to the training and education of a young noble destined to become a knight. The journey to knighthood commenced at a tender age. A boy of noble birth, often as young as 7, would be sent away from his family to reside in the castle of a lord who would become his liege. This move served not only as the beginning of the boy's training, but also as a means to strengthen political alliances among the nobility. This boy, known as Page, would embark on a rigorous education that extended far beyond combat skills. The training was meticulously designed to mold him into a figure embodying the ideals of chivalry and service, qualities that were central to the knightly ethos. During this phase, the page's day would commence before dawn. His duties would include serving at the lord's table, caring for the lord's clothes, and ensuring the cleanliness of the lord's living quarters. These seemingly menial tasks were essential in instilling a sense of humility and the significance of service in the young page. Education played a pivotal role in the page's day. He would learn to read and write, often in Latin, the lingua franca of the educated in the Middle Ages. He would also study arithmetic and, perhaps most importantly, music. Music was not merely for entertainment, but was also considered a means to make the page well-rounded and cultured. He would learn to play the lute or the harp, and frequently he would be required to sing. These skills would later prove invaluable in the courts of the nobility, where a knight was expected to be as skilled in the arts as he was in warfare. The page's education extended beyond academics. He would learn essential skills like horseback riding, a crucial aspect of knighthood. Initially, he would ride small ponies before progressing to larger steeds. Simultaneously, he would embark on martial training, mastering the use of a wooden sword and shield under the guidance of experienced knights who ensured he learned the correct techniques and forms. Religion held immense significance in a knight's life, and the page's education would encompass this aspect as well. Regular church attendance would be a part of his routine, where he would learn the tenets of Christianity and the profound importance of faith. Knights were revered as defenders of the faith, and this belief was instilled in him from a young age. Additionally, he would be taught the code of chivalry, a moral and social code that knights were expected to uphold. This code emphasized virtues such as bravery, honor, respect for women, and protection of the vulnerable. The page would acquire these values not only through formal instruction, but also by observing the knights and lords around him. After years of rigorous education and training, typically around the age of 14, the page would transition into the role of a squire. This marked the next phase in his journey toward becoming a knight. As a squire, his responsibilities would increase, and the intensity of his martial training would intensify. However, that is a story for another time. As we conclude this section, envision the young page, a child in many ways, living away from his family and immersing himself in the ways of a world that demanded immense dedication from him. His days were filled with duty, discipline, and the weight of expectation. Yet amidst these challenges, he would also experience a sense of pride and anticipation, eagerly awaiting the day when he would finally earn the right to call himself a knight. This was the beginning of a transformative journey that would not only shape his life, but also leave an indelible mark on the very fabric of the Middle Ages. In the early stages of adulthood, our young knight in training would step onto the stage of knighthood, entering the esteemed role of a squire. This stage of the knight's journey was crucial for learning and proving one's worth. At around 14, a young man would leave his family to live with a knight, serving as his attendant. This period involved learning chivalry, combat, and courtly manners. It was a challenging transition, but it was also essential. As a squire, the young man's life was dedicated to service and humility. He polished armor, groomed horses, and observed seasoned knights. Squires had various duties, including assisting knights in battle, carrying weapons and shields, ensuring armor was in good condition, and tending to horses. They also served at night, pouring drinks and cutting meat. Despite the hard work, squires gained valuable insights into the world of politics, warfare, and the chivalric code by listening to knights and lords. They were not just servants, they were students. They learned horsemanship, a crucial skill for knights, and practiced wrestling and hunting to improve their physical strength and dexterity. Squires were also taught to read and write in Latin and French, the languages of the court and church. These lessons equipped them with the knowledge and skills needed to navigate medieval society. As squires grew older, they were expected to accompany their knight to tournaments, an integral part of knightly life. These events were not just games, they showcased military prowess and chivalry. Knights tested their martial skills, earned glory, and strengthened social bonds. For squires, these tournaments provided opportunities to observe and learn, and sometimes even participate. Knights competed in events like jousting and melee combat, and squires assisted their knights by helping them put on armor, care for their horses, and provide weapons. However, squires were not just spectators, they actively contributed to the tournaments. Squires, too, played a crucial role in the tournament. In certain events, they were permitted to compete, providing them with an opportunity to showcase their exceptional martial skills. These were significant chances for squires, as if they performed well, they could capture the attention of other knights and lords, thereby enhancing their reputation and prospects. Life as a squire was not solely about hard work. There were moments for leisure and entertainment, such as singing, storytelling, playing games, and engaging in sports. Squires often participated in mock battles and horse races, which not only honed their skills, but also provided them with enjoyable experiences. While these activities were undoubtedly enjoyable, they also served as an integral part of their training, imparting valuable lessons in teamwork, strategy, and the art of war. As squires matured and gained greater proficiency in their duties, they gradually assumed more responsibilities. They might be entrusted with leading a group of younger squires or assisting knights with more intricate tasks. These developments indicated that the squire was nearing the culmination of his training, signaling his readiness to assume the mantle of knighthood. The transition from squire to knight was not an automatic process. It was a privilege that required years of dedicated service and hard work. When the knight felt that the squire was prepared, he would recommend him for knighthood. This was a momentous occasion, often accompanied by a grand ceremony. The night preceding the ceremony, the squire would undergo a ritual bath symbolizing purification. Subsequently, he would don a white tunic representing purity, a red robe symbolizing nobility, and black shoes signifying death. During the ceremony, the knight would dub the squire by tapping each of his shoulders with the flat of a sword in a ritual known as the accolade. This was the moment the squire had diligently worked towards, the moment he had become a knight. However, the ceremony did not signify the end of the knight's journey. Instead, it marked the beginning of a new chapter, filled with responsibilities, challenges, honor, and glory. The newly made knight, now a member of the nobility, a defender of the realm, and a champion of chivalry, had earned his spurs. However, the real test of his mettle was yet to come. As we delve deeper into the life of a medieval knight, we find ourselves at a pivotal moment in the young squire's life. The day of his dubbing, the official ceremony that would elevate him to the status of a knight, had finally arrived. This was a day of immense anticipation, a culmination of years of rigorous training, discipline, and unwavering dedication. The ceremony of dubbing held profound spiritual and symbolic significance. The night before the dubbing, the squire would partake in a ritual known as the Vigil of Arms. In a chapel, he would fast and pray, contemplating the gravity of the commitment he was about to make. This was a time for introspection, a moment to reflect on the virtues of chivalry he vowed to uphold. The squire would lay his armor and weapons on the chapel's altar, symbolically offering them to God. This act served as a reminder that his strength and skill were not his own, but gifts bestowed upon him by a higher power. As dawn broke on the day of the dubbing, the squire would undergo a cleansing bath and be dressed in symbolic garments. He would wear a white shirt, symbolizing purity, a red robe, representing his willingness to shed blood for his cause, and black stockings, signifying his inevitable death. Once dressed, the squire would make his way to the ceremony, where he would be greeted by a procession of knights and nobles. The ceremony itself was a solemn affair, filled with rituals and reverence. The soon-to-be knight would kneel before the Lord performing the dubbing, who would be seated on a raised platform. The Lord would inquire if the squire was prepared to uphold the chivalric code, to which the squire would respond affirmatively. The Lord would then tap the squire's shoulders with a sword in a gesture known as the accolade, officially confirming his status as a knight. Once dubbed, the new knight would be presented with his spurs, the emblem of his newfound status. These spurs, typically crafted from gold, were a mark of honor, signifying the knight's readiness to serve his lord and safeguard the realm. The knight would then be armed, first with his sword, followed by his shield, and finally his helmet. With each piece of armor, the Lord would utter a blessing, infusing the armor with symbolic significance and divine protection. The ceremony would culminate in a grand feast where the new knight would be celebrated and welcomed into the fellowship of knights. Here, he would be seated at the high table, surrounded by his fellow knights, who would raise their glasses in honor of his achievements and pledge their unwavering loyalty and brotherhood. As the feast unfolded, the new knight would be regaled with tales of legendary knights, their heroic deeds serving as inspiration and guidance for his own future endeavors. Once the feast concluded, the true essence of knighthood commenced. The newly dubbed knight was now expected to serve his lord in times of war and protect the vulnerable and innocent during peacetime. He was expected to uphold the virtues of chivalry, embodying bravery, courtesy, and generosity, and always conducting himself with utmost honor. This was no trivial task, for the life of a knight was fraught with challenges and dangers. Yet it was also a life of immense honor and responsibility, a life that could bring glory and renown to those who upheld its ideals. The life of a medieval knight was not an easy one, but it was a life that many aspired to. It was a life of service, honor, and courage, and for those who persevered, upheld the chivalric code, it was a life that could yield great rewards. But above all, it was a life that shaped the course of history, leaving an indelible mark on the world. As we embark on our journey into the life of a medieval knight, let us remember the dedication, commitment, and courage that it took to don the mantle of knighthood. Let us remember the men who lived this life, who served their lords and protected their realms, and who shaped the world with their deeds. Let us also remember the legacy they left behind, a legacy of honor, courage, and chivalry. In the life of a medieval knight, the dawn of his martial career was marked by his squireship. This was a critical time, as it laid the groundwork for the rest of his life. A young man, usually around the age of 14, would leave his family to live in the household of a lord. This was a significant change, a transition from the comfort of one's family to the stern discipline of a lord's hold. Under the watchful eye of an experienced knight who would serve as his mentor, the squire would begin his training. He would learn not only the arts of war, but also the chivalric codes and social etiquette that would become the cornerstones of his identity. The day-to-day life of a squire was filled with both work and learning. His mornings typically began before dawn with prayers in the chapel. This was followed by an extensive training regimen that involved horse riding, archery, and swordplay. But his days were not all about martial training. He would also be expected to assist his knight in various duties, such as donning his armor, caring for his horses, and accompanying him in hunts and tournaments. Additionally, the squire would serve at the lord's table during feasts and attend to any guests, which was an important part of his education as it taught him the social graces and etiquette of the nobility. However, squire was not all work and no play. There were ample opportunities for leisure and enjoyment. The medieval knight's life was punctuated by grand tournaments, feasts, and hunts. These events were not just recreational, they were a crucial part of the knight's social life, allowing him to forge alliances and demonstrate his prowess. The squire, too, would participate in these events, often competing against other squires in mock tournaments. These events served as both a testing ground for their martial skills and an opportunity to attract potential patrons. As the squire matured and honed his abilities, he would assume greater responsibilities. These might include leading a group into battle or managing the lord's estates. This was a test of his leadership and administrative prowess, preparing him for his future role as a knight. The culmination of his training was the dubbing ceremony, a momentous occasion filled with ritual and symbolism. The squire would undergo a cleansing bath, don new attire, and be presented to the lord. The lord would then bestow knighthood upon him by tapping him on the shoulder with a sword, a ritual known as the accolade. The newly dubbed knight would receive his sword and spurs, the symbols of his newfound status. He would solemnly swear an oath of allegiance to his lord, pledging unwavering loyalty and service. Thus, the squire would officially become a knight, ready to embark on a new chapter of his life. This was a moment of immense joy and pride, not only for the knight, but also for his family and mentor. It marked the successful completion of his training and the beginning of his illustrious career as a knight. This was a significant milestone in a knight's life, a moment when he would step out from his mentor's shadow and forge his own identity. He would be expected to uphold the chivalric code, protect the vulnerable, and serve his lord faithfully. Additionally, he would be expected to participate in wars and tournaments to showcase his martial prowess and earn glory for his lord and himself. However, the life of a knight was not solely defined by war and glory. There were also periods of peace when the knight would be entrusted with managing his estates and performing various administrative duties. This required a different kind of challenge, demanding not only strength and courage, but also wisdom and diplomacy. The knight's life was a complex and multifaceted one, filled with challenges and responsibilities. It required not just physical strength, but also mental resilience and emotional maturity. Despite the hardships and risks, it was a life that many young men aspired to, drawn by the allure of honor, glory, and adventure. In the next section, we will explore the later years of a knight's life, a time of reflection and consolidation. We will examine the challenges and rewards of this period and how the knight navigated the twilight of his career, whether in war or in peace, in youth or in old age. The knight remained a figure of fascination and reverence, a symbol of the ideals and aspirations of the medieval world. As we journey further into the life of a medieval knight, we find ourselves in the midst of the knighting ceremony. This pivotal moment in a squire's life is the culmination of years of training and preparation. The evening before the ceremony, the squire would take a ritual bath symbolic of purification. He would dress in a white tunic to represent purity, red robes to symbolize the blood he was willing to shed for his lord and his people, and a black robe as a reminder of his eventual death. The squire would prepare himself for the solemnity of the occasion. During this time, he would pray and meditate, reflecting on his vows of chivalry, the responsibility that he was about to undertake, and the significance of his upcoming role in society. This period of vigil was meant to test his resolve, patience, and dedication. It was a time of quiet introspection and contemplation, allowing the squire to mentally prepare himself for the duties and obligations he was about to accept. As dawn broke on the day of the ceremony, the squire, now clean in body and spirit, would be dressed in his finest attire, ready to take on his new role. He would make his way to the chapel where the ceremony was to take place, accompanied by a procession of fellow knights and nobles. His family, friends, and the people of the kingdom would gather to witness this significant event. The ceremony was solemn, filled with religious symbolism and rituals. The priest would bless the sword, which was then placed on the altar. The squire would kneel before his lord, who would present him with his spurs, shield, and finally his sword. The future knight would swear an oath of loyalty to his lord, promising to uphold the ideals of chivalry, protect the weak and defenseless, and serve his lord faithfully. The act of dubbing, the moment when the squire officially became a knight, was a symbolic gesture. The lord would lightly strike him on the shoulder with the flat of the sword, a symbolic blow to remind the new knight of his obligations and duties. This moment, known as the accolade, was a significant milestone in the life of a knight, marking the transition from squire to knight, from student to master. Once the ceremony concluded, the new knight would mount his horse, draw his sword, and hold it aloft as a symbol of his new status. He would then ride around the courtyard or the tournament field, showcasing his new accoutrements to the assembled crowd. The people would cheer, celebrating the birth of a new knight, a new protector of the realm. The first few years of knighthood were often filled with challenges and trials. A newly dubbed knight was expected to prove his worth on the battlefield and in tournaments. He would be tested not only on his combat skills, but also on his ability to uphold the ideals of chivalry and his loyalty to his lord. These were the years when the knight would truly come into his own, honing his skills, gaining experience, and earning his reputation. Many knights sought to distinguish themselves either through acts of bravery on the battlefield or through their prowess in tournaments. The knight's reputation was his most valuable asset. A good reputation could earn him fame, wealth, and the respect of his peers. The life of a knight was not solely about warfare and combat. He was also expected to embody chivalry, being courteous, generous, and honorable. Knights were often called upon to act as judges in disputes, protect the vulnerable, and set an example for others. Despite the violence and brutality of their profession, knights were expected to uphold the highest standards of conduct both on and off the battlefield. Life as a knight was fraught with dangers and challenges, yet it was also filled with honor and glory. A knight was more than just a warrior. He was a protector, a leader, and a symbol of chivalry. From the moment he was dubbed to the end of his life, a knight carried the weight of his responsibilities with pride and dedication. He lived his life in service to his lord and his people, striving to uphold the ideals of chivalry and justice, even in the face of adversity and hardship. An integral aspect of a medieval knight's life was the code of chivalry. This was not a written law, but rather a collection of expectations and ideals that shaped the knight's behavior and character. A knight was expected to be brave and courageous in battle, serve his lord faithfully, and uphold justice. He was also expected to be courteous, especially towards women, and show generosity to the less fortunate. The code of chivalry emphasized the importance of honor and reputation, and knights were expected to engage in acts of valor to maintain and enhance their standing. The chivalric code not only influenced knights' actions during times of war, but also their behavior during times of peace. Knights were expected to participate in tournaments, which were essentially mock battles that allowed them to showcase their skill and bravery. These grand tournaments, often attended by nobles and royalty, held immense significance. Winning a tournament could significantly enhance a knight's reputation. Additionally, knights engaged in the practice of courtly love, an idealized form of love often unrequited or unfulfilled. This form of love typically directed towards a lady of higher social standing, often the knight's lord's wife. Courtly love was characterized by secrecy, admiration from a distance, and deep respect for the lady. This practice was frequently romanticized in medieval literature and served as another avenue for knights to demonstrate their chivalry. However, the life of a knight was not solely defined by warfare and chivalry. Knights also had responsibilities to their estates and families. Many knights held the title of lord, which entailed managing lands and serfs. They were expected to provide protection and justice for their people in return for labor and goods. Managing an estate was a complex task that demanded a comprehensive understanding of agriculture, economics, and local laws. Furthermore, knights had a duty to their families. Marriages among the nobility were often arranged for political or economic reasons, and knights were expected to be faithful to their wives and provide for their children. They were also responsible for training their sons in the ways of knighthood, ensuring the continuation of the chivalric tradition for future generations. The life of a knight was filled with contradictions. On one hand, they were warriors trained to fight and kill in the name of their lord. On the other hand, they were expected to embody virtues, upholding the ideals of chivalry and courtly love. Knights were managers of estates and leaders of men. Yet they were also servants bound by their vows of loyalty to their lord. Despite these contradictions, or perhaps because of them, the figure of the knight continues to captivate us today. In the subsequent section, we'll explore the twilight years of a knight's life, delving into how they navigated the challenges of aging in a society that highly valued physical prowess and martial skill. We'll also examine the enduring legacy that knights left behind, both in tangible forms like castles and fortifications, and in intangible ones, like the ideals of chivalry that continue to shape our culture today. As you drift off to sleep, let your imagination wander through the grand halls of medieval castles, filled with the echoes of clashing swords and the whispers of courtly love. Let the tales of knights and chivalry guide you into a peaceful slumber filled with dreams of valor and honor. As we journey through the intricate pathways of a medieval knight's life, we now find ourselves at the threshold of adulthood. The young squire, having dedicated years to mastering the arts of war and chivalry, stands on the precipice of a transformative moment, the moment of being dubbed a knight. This pivotal ceremony held immense significance in the Middle Ages, and it's here that we'll focus our attention in this part of our exploration. The dubbing ceremony, also known as the accolade, was a rite of passage for any medieval squire. It marked the culmination of years of rigorous training and preparation. Often held in a religious setting, the ceremony emphasized the Christian morals that were considered the foundation of knighthood. The night before the ceremony, the squire would engage in a vigil of arms, a solemn practice of prayer and fasting that prepared his mind and spirit for the weighty responsibility ahead. As a symbolic act of purification, the squire would bathe and dress in symbolic colors, white for purity, red for nobility, and black for death, a stark reminder of the perilous nature of his profession. The actual ceremony was steeped in symbolism and tradition. The future knight would kneel before the lord conducting the ceremony, presenting his sword in a gesture of homage. The lord would then strike the squire on the shoulder with the flat of his sword, a symbolic act known as the accolade. This moment of transformation marked the squire's transition into a knight. Upon becoming a knight, the new warrior would receive his spurs, the ultimate symbol of his newfound status. These were not ordinary spurs but intricately decorated, often made of pure gold. They symbolized the knight's unwavering commitment to his ideals and his duty to spur himself into action whenever injustice threatened to prevail. The newly minted knight would then mount his powerful warhorse, a steed specially trained for battle. This steed, often a gift from the lord, was as integral to the knight's image as his armor and sword. It embodied his strength, courage, and nobility, serving as a steadfast companion in battle and a partner in his quest for honor and glory. Even after the dubbing ceremony, the knight's training continued unabated. He diligently honed his skills, mastering the art of war and chivalry. Daily drills, tournaments, and mock battles were an integral part of his life, ensuring that he remained always prepared for battle. The life of a knight was a constant cycle of preparation, a never-ending journey of training and fighting, all driven by the pursuit of honor and duty. Beyond his warrior prowess, the knight held the title of landowner and lord in his own right. He was granted lands by his lord and derived his income from these territories. As a landowner, he bore the responsibility of protecting and ensuring the welfare of the people residing on his lands, a duty he carried with the same sense of honor and duty that he exhibited on the battlefield. While history has painted knights in a romanticized light, it is crucial to remember that their lives were far from easy. They were expected to adhere to a strict code of behavior known as the chivalric code, which demanded unwavering loyalty, bravery, and honor. Knights were expected to be courageous in battle, merciful in victory, generous to the less fortunate, and respectful to all. Medieval knights lived demanding lives that required both physical strength and mental fortitude. As we explore their lives, we uncover the complexities and challenges of this unique way of life. From the moment of their dubbing, knights were thrust into a life of constant struggle and duty. Despite these burdens, they carried them with honor and courage, living up to the ideals of chivalry even in the face of death. In the next part of our journey, we'll delve into the life of a knight at war, a period that tested their courage, skill, and commitment to the chivalric code. As we continue, let these tales of bravery and honor guide you into a serene sleep filled with dreams of valor and chivalry. Beyond their physical prowess, knights were bound by the knightly virtues, the moral and social code of chivalry. In the 12th century, the Church sought to harness the warrior ethos of the knight and channel it towards religious ends. This gave rise to the concept of the chivalric knight, a warrior who embodied both physical strength and moral uprightness. Medieval literature often depicted knights' virtues, influencing societal perceptions of these warriors. These virtues included honesty, courage, loyalty, generosity, and courtesy. Honesty meant keeping one's word, never lying and never cheating. Knights were expected to be courageous in battle, never fleeing from the enemy and never showing fear. Loyalty was paramount, as knights were expected to be loyal to their liege lord and comrades in arms. Generosity involved a knight's duty to be charitable to those less fortunate, while courtesy denoted expected behavior in social situations, showing respect to women and conducting oneself with dignity and grace. Knights were also expected to demonstrate piety, showing reverence for the Church and its teachings. This was a direct consequence of the Church's influence on chivalry, and knights were frequently portrayed as protectors of the Church and its people. Knights' religious duties encompassed attending Mass, confession, and embarking on pilgrimages. Some even chose to join religious military orders like the Knights Templars or the Knights Hospitaller, serving both God and the king. The training of knights was not solely physical, but also moral and spiritual. Their education included learning about the Christian faith and the virtues of chivalry. This education was often imparted by the Church through priests and monks who played a crucial role in the upbringing of knights. The chivalrous knight was also expected to be a patron of the arts, fostering the development of literature, music, and architecture. Many knights were themselves poets and musicians, composing songs and poems about love and war. They were also patrons of the visual arts, commissioning paintings and sculptures to adorn their castles and chapels. Knights' castles were not just strongholds, but also cultural centers where artists and scholars gathered to create and share their works. Despite these lofty ideals, not all knights lived up to the standards of chivalry. Some knights were infamous for their cruelty and greed, exploiting the peasantry and engaging in acts of violence. These knights were often depicted as villains in medieval literature, serving as a stark contrast to the chivalrous knight. Life as a knight was not solely about warfare and violence. There was also a significant amount of time dedicated to leisure activities. Knights enjoyed hunting, falconry, and participating in tournaments. These tournaments were not just sporting events, but also social occasions where knights could showcase their prowess and earn honor and glory. The tournament was a microcosm of the knight's knightly life, combining elements of warfare, chivalry, and courtly love. The life of a medieval knight was a complex tapestry woven with threads of warfare, chivalry, and courtly love. It was a life of contradictions, where violence and brutality coexisted with honor and virtue. Despite these contradictions, or perhaps because of them, the figure of the knight continues to captivate us, serving as a symbol of a bygone era when honor held immeasurable value, and a man's worth was measured by his prowess in battle and his unwavering adherence to the virtues of chivalry. As we delve deeper into the life of a medieval knight, we find ourselves drawn to their experiences on the battlefield. The knight is often portrayed as a gallant figure, charging on horseback, clad in gleaming armor, sword raised high. However, the reality of medieval warfare was far more intricate. The knight was not merely a warrior, he was a symbol of bravery, honor, and chivalry, and the battlefield was the stage upon which these virtues were rigorously tested. To comprehend medieval warfare, it is essential to recognize that it was not a constant state of affairs. Periods of peace were as prevalent, if not more so, than periods of conflict. Knights dedicated a significant portion of their time to training, maintaining their equipment, and managing their estates. However, when war erupted, the knight's role became paramount. On the battlefield, the knight was expected to lead with unwavering determination. Often positioned at the forefront of the army, they served as both a physical and moral bulwark against the enemy. The knight's role extended beyond mere combat. They were tasked with inspiring their men, demonstrating that bravery and honor could triumph over fear and doubt. Their presence on the battlefield became a rallying point, a beacon of hope amidst the chaos and carnage. Knights were frequently the initiators of charges, a tactic that, when executed successfully, could shatter enemy lines and turn the tide of battle. These charges were a terrifying spectacle, a formidable wall of steel and horseflesh descending upon the enemy. Medieval warfare, often depicted as knights charging on horseback, was a brutal and dangerous affair that demanded careful timing and coordination. A charge launched too early could exhaust the horses and leave the knights vulnerable, while a charge launched too late could fail to break the enemy lines. Despite the iconic image, much of medieval combat actually took place on foot. Knights would dismount to engage the enemy in melee combat, wielding swords, axes, and maces. Their skill and training made them formidable opponents. Their chainmail or later plate armor provided excellent protection, while their shields could be used defensively or offensively. However, knights were not invincible. They could be injured, captured, or even killed. This risk was part of their duty and the code of chivalry they lived by. Knights were expected to face danger fearlessly, risking their lives for their lord and kingdom. Death on the battlefield was not considered a tragedy, but an honor. Knights who died in combat were said to have achieved a good death and were often buried with full military honors. Their graves were marked with crosses or statues of knights in prayer, and their deeds were remembered in songs and poems, their names inscribed on the roll of honor. While warfare was about glory and honor, it was also about strategy and tactics. Knights had to understand the terrain, the strengths and weaknesses of their forces, and the enemies. They had to know when to attack, defend, or retreat, adapt to changing circumstances, make decisions under pressure, and lead their men with wisdom and courage. The life of a medieval knight on the battlefield was a balance of bravery and prudence, honor and strategy. It was a life of service and sacrifice, duty and devotion, demanding much but offering much in return. The knight, a warrior, leader, and symbol of chivalry, embodied the medieval ideal, a beacon of hope amidst uncertainty and change. In the heart of the Middle Ages, defined by chivalry, honor, and the clanging of steel, the life of a knight was far from easy. It was a path for those with the courage to face trials and tribulations. Aspiring knights typically began their journey at a tender age, often no older than 7. Sent away from their families, they resided in the household of a lord or relative, assuming the role of a page. In this role, young boys performed various chores and tasks while learning the fundamental principles of chivalry and knighthood. Their days were filled with rigorous training and lessons in etiquette, courtly manners, horse riding, and combat. Religion also played a crucial role in their education, as faith was integral to a knight's life. At around 14, pages were elevated to the rank of squires, a significant step forward in their journey to knighthood. This marked an increase in responsibilities and duties. Squires served directly under knights, acting as personal attendants. They assisted in maintaining the knight's armor and weapons, accompanied him to tournaments and battles, and even served him at the dining table. Despite the seemingly menial nature of these tasks, they served a crucial purpose, allowing squires to observe knights closely in their daily lives. Through first-hand experience, they learned the virtues and codes of conduct that defined true knights. They witnessed the knight's bravery in battle, fairness in judgment, piety in faith, and courtesy towards ladies. Additionally, squires continued their physical training, which became more intense and focused. He would learn to wield a diverse array of weapons, including swords, lances, and bows. He would practice jousting and engage in mock battles, honing his skills and preparing himself for the real challenges that awaited him. The title of knight was not simply bestowed upon the squire upon reaching a certain age. It was a title that required a demonstration of skill, courage, and virtue. When his master deemed him ready, the squire would undergo the ceremony of knighthood. This was a deeply religious and symbolic event, often held in a church and involving a night-long vigil during which the squire would pray and prepare himself for the life that lay ahead. Upon his knighting, he would be presented with his armor and weapons, each piece symbolizing a different virtue. The helmet represented wisdom, the breastplate righteousness, the shield faith, and the sword the spirit of justice. Dressed in his new regalia, the newly knighted man would then take the oath of knighthood, pledging to defend the weak, uphold the law, and serve his lord faithfully. In the next section, we will delve into the life of the knight after his knighting, focusing on his role in society, his duties, and the challenges he would face. But for now, let's take a moment to appreciate the incredible journey these young boys undertook, and the bravery and determination they demonstrated at such a young age. Their journey was not an easy one, but it was one that shaped them into the iconic figures we know today, the knights of the Middle Ages. As we delve deeper into the life of a medieval knight, we must examine the core of their existence, their code of chivalry. The word chivalry itself originates from the French term chivalry, meaning horsemanship. Knights were above all horsemen, skilled riders trained to maneuver their steeds with grace and precision, even in the heat of battle. However, the term chivalry came to represent much more than just equestrian prowess. Chivalry, a strict moral and ethical code, guided knights' actions both on and off the battlefield. It emphasized bravery in battle, loyalty to their lord and comrades, and devotion to the church. Above all, it instilled a sense of honor and justice. Knights were expected to protect the vulnerable, be generous and kind to their inferiors, and always act with integrity. Failure to uphold these values risked losing their status and reputation. Chivalry was the heart and soul of knighthood, distinguishing true knights from mere soldiers or mercenaries. One of the most significant aspects of a knight's life was their religious devotion. Knights were deeply religious, with the church playing a pivotal role. Regular attendance at Mass and observance of holy days were expected. Many knights took vows of chastity and poverty, renouncing worldly pleasures in service to God. They viewed their duty as a holy mission, a divine calling that required putting aside personal desires and dedicating themselves entirely to others. Knights were also expected to be patrons of the arts and letters, encouraged to learn reading and writing, appreciate poetry and music, and engage in intellectual pursuits. They were ideal knights, scholars, and gentlemen. Well-educated, cultured, and refined, they could recite poetry, play musical instruments, and engage in sophisticated conversations. Knowledge of the world and its affairs, coupled with curiosity and inquisitiveness, were expected. Being a knight was not merely a job or profession, it was a way of life encompassing every aspect of a man's existence: moral and ethical conduct, intellectual pursuits, and social interactions. It was a demanding and challenging lifestyle, yet it was also one of great honor and prestige. Knights held a revered position in society, embodying privilege and respect. Their training was rigorous and demanding, beginning with boys as young as 7 who served as pages in noble households. These pages learned the fundamentals of horsemanship, weaponry, and chivalry. After years of service, they advanced to the rank of squire, directly under a knight, and assisting him with various duties. Squires learned to care for the knight's horse and equipment, follow him into battle, and emulate his behavior and conduct. After extensive training and service, a squire could finally be knighted and join the esteemed ranks of chivalry. Knighthood demanded strength, courage, and unwavering devotion to a strict moral and ethical code. However, for those willing to embrace the challenge, it offered a life of honor, glory, and meaningful societal contribution. It was a life of duty and sacrifice, yet also one of honor and prestige, filled with danger, excitement, joy, and fulfillment. In essence, it was the life of a medieval knight. As we explore the life of a medieval knight, it's crucial to examine the pivotal role of training in shaping these esteemed warriors. The journey to knighthood commenced at a young age, often as early as 7, when a boy was sent to a noble household as a page. This marked the beginning of his education where he learned basic manners, courtesy, and the social graces expected of a knight. Additionally, he received religious instruction and moral codes, essential components of the chivalric ethos. From the noble household, young page would observe the knights and squires, learning by imitation and aspiring to their prowess. He dreamed of the day when he too would don the armor of a knight. As a page, he assisted with horses, cleaned weapons, and helped with household chores. This rigorous yet essential phase laid the foundation for his future knightly duties. Around the age of 14, Page would graduate to the rank of a squire, a significant milestone in his path to knighthood. As a squire, he would be entrusted with more responsibilities, such as carrying the knight's shield and additional weapons into battle. He would also assist the knight in donning his armor, a task requiring strength and dexterity due to the weight and complexity of medieval armor. Simultaneously, the squire's training intensified. He practiced daily with various weapons, particularly the sword and lance, honing his skills for the battlefield. He also learned to ride and control a horse while wearing armor, a challenging task demanding physical stamina and agility. Mock battles, tournaments, and hunting expeditions provided practical training grounds where the squire could apply and test his skills. Often overlooked, the squire's education encompassed intellectual and moral training. The concept of chivalry was deeply ingrained in the knightly classes, combining martial prowess with virtues like loyalty, honor, generosity, and piety. The squire learned about these ideals through instruction and observation of the knights around him. Stories of legendary knights and their heroic deeds served as moral guides, illustrating the qualities a knight should possess. Typically, a squire served for 7 years before being considered for knighthood. In times of war, squires could be knighted earlier if they demonstrated exceptional bravery or skill in battle. The ceremony of dubbing to knighthood was a solemn and significant occasion often associated with religious rituals. The prospective knight would spend the night in prayer and fasting. In the morning, he would confess his sins, take a purifying bath, and wear symbolic white garments, signifying his purity and devotion. The actual ceremony involved the would-be knight kneeling before a lord or another knight. He would swear an oath of loyalty and promise to uphold the ideals of chivalry. The lord or knight would then confer the accolade, a symbolic blow on the shoulder with the flat of a sword, after which the newly dubbed knight would receive his spurs, the ultimate symbol of his new status. Being a knight was an honor and a responsibility. It was a role that demanded physical strength, martial skill, and a deep understanding of the ideals of chivalry. The rigorous training that began at the age of 7 molded the knight into a warrior, a protector, and a symbol of the highest ideals of medieval society. Despite the hardships and challenges, for many, the path to knighthood was a journey worth undertaking, a chance to achieve honor, respect, and a place in history. As we continue to explore the life of a medieval knight, we will delve into his role on the battlefield, his armor and weapons, and the impact of chivalry on medieval society. Each aspect of the knight's life and role paints a detailed picture of the complexities inherent in this revered position. A knight was more than a warrior. He was a symbol of the values and ideals that shaped medieval society. It is through understanding these intricacies that we can truly appreciate the life and legacy of the medieval knight. As the sun descended, casting elongated shadows over the stone walls of the castle, the life of a medieval knight transitioned from the day's labors to the evening's duties. The grand hall, where the knight had earlier enjoyed his midday meal, buzzed with activity. The air was filled with the enticing aroma of roasting meat and freshly baked bread, accompanied by the lively chatter of servants and the rhythmic clatter of pots and pans. Here the knight partook in the communal and often lengthy supper, a time for relaxation and camaraderie after a demanding day. Supper held great importance, serving as a means to replenish the energy expended throughout the day. The meal was substantial, featuring a meat or fish dish, bread, cheese, and occasionally a sweet pudding, wine, and ale. These offerings provided the knight with an opportunity to unwind and savor the company of his fellow knights. While the food was often simple, the conversation was vibrant, filled with tales of battle, strategic discussions, and the latest news from the realm. After supper, the knight had some free time to engage in various activities. Some might choose quiet contemplation, reading or praying in the castle's chapel. Others might opt for more physical pursuits, such as playing chess or backgammon, or perhaps engaging in light sparring to maintain their skills. The night was his own, and he had the freedom to use it as he pleased. As the evening progressed, the castle gradually quieted down. The fires in the hearth were banked, the servants retired to their quarters, and the knight prepared for sleep. The process of retiring for the night was not straightforward. The knight first had to remove his day clothes, which could be a laborious task, especially if he had been wearing armor. He then donned his night clothes, typically a simple tunic and breeches, and retired to his bedchamber. The knight's bedchamber was a modest affair, typically comprising a bed, a chest for personal belongings, and perhaps a small table and chair. The bed was a simple wooden frame with a straw mattress and a few blankets for warmth. Despite the simplicity of his accommodations, the knight would likely have been comfortable, as the room would have been heated by a small fire in the hearth. Sleep was crucial for the knight, allowing him to rest and rejuvenate after the day's rigors. He would usually sleep for about 8 hours, rising with the dawn to begin another day of service to his lord. The life of a medieval knight was not an easy one, filled with physical exertion, danger, and a strict adherence to the code of chivalry. However, it was also a life of honor, purpose, and camaraderie. Each day from dawn to dusk, the knight lived his life in service to his lord and his kingdom, upholding the ideals of bravery, loyalty, and honor that were the cornerstone of the knightly code. As we continue our journey through the life of a medieval knight, we will delve deeper into the intricacies of his daily routine, exploring the trials and triumphs, the duties and delights that defined the life of these iconic figures of the Middle Ages. So close your eyes, let your mind wander through the stone corridors of the castle, and imagine the life of a knight as we continue to explore the fascinating history of the Middle Ages. Sleep well and dream of knights and castles, of honor and chivalry, and of a time when life was guided by a code of honor. The life of a medieval knight was not only about training and battles, it was also about the intricate social structures and codes of conduct that governed their everyday lives. Chivalry was the code of conduct that dictated how knights should behave, combining Christian values with the military virtues of bravery, loyalty, and honor. The concept of chivalry was widely popularized and romanticized in medieval literature, captivating the imaginations of the time with tales of knightly heroism and courtly love. Being a knight meant above all being a Christian warrior. Knights were expected to protect the vulnerable, provide for widows and orphans, and refrain from unnecessary offense. They were expected to fight for the welfare of all and obey those in authority. The chivalric virtues deeply ingrained in the medieval knight's psyche formed the core of his identity and sense of self. Beyond their military and religious duties, knights held significant influence in medieval society. They were among the ruling elite, wielding considerable power and authority. Often called upon as advisors to kings or lords, their counsel and sword arm were highly valued, playing a crucial role in kingdom decision-making. However, knights also had leisure and recreational time. Tournaments, grand spectacles lasting days, were popular pastimes. These contests showcased knights' skill and bravery in various contests, with jousting being the most renowned. Jousting tested horsemanship and lance skills. Other contests included the melee, where knights engaged in mock battles, and the padams, where knights challenged opponents to combat. Hunting and falconry were also cherished pursuits. These activities served as both recreational outlets and essential training exercises, honing knights' tracking, stealth, and precision skills. Music and poetry were integral to a knight's education, fostering a well-rounded individual capable of appreciating and contributing to the arts. Courtly love, another significant aspect of a knight's life, was a stylized and idealized form of love, often extramarital, that gained popularity in the literature of the time. Knights were expected to be devoted to their ladies, serving them with loyalty and respect, and performing deeds of valor in their honor. While this was a highly romanticized and often unrealistic ideal, it held immense cultural power, shaping the behavior and attitudes of knights. Being a knight was a lifelong commitment, accompanied by great responsibility and demanding personal discipline. However, it also offered a privileged position with opportunities for glory and honor. Despite the challenges, those called to this life found the chance to live out the ideals of chivalry and serve a greater cause. This was the life of a medieval knight, a life of duty and devotion, hardship and glory, war and peace. Deeply ingrained in medieval society, it shaped values, ideals, hopes, and dreams. It remains a powerful symbol of the chivalric ideal, inspiring and captivating us to this day. In the next section, we will explore the twilight years of a knight's life, their role as elder statesmen and mentors to the next generation of warriors. As knights approached the autumn of their years, they often found new purpose and meaning, demonstrating that their contributions extended beyond battlefield prowess. Now let us delve deeper into the life of a medieval knight, focusing on a crucial aspect of their existence, the code of chivalry. This moral, religious, and social code governed the conduct of knights, encompassing a set of ideals and responsibilities. These ideals were frequently discussed in medieval literature, such as the renowned Arthurian legends. The code of chivalry, a set of moral and ethical expectations, dictated that knights should be brave in battle, loyal to their lord and comrades, and ready to defend the church. They were expected to be paragons of virtue, demonstrating honesty, generosity, and courtesy. Above all, knights were to be humble, recognizing that their skills and status were gifts from God, meant to be used in service to others. Knights were also expected to show respect and protect those weaker than themselves, particularly women and children. This aspect of chivalry was often romanticized in medieval literature, with tales of knights performing daring deeds to win the favor of a lady. However, this was not solely about romantic love, it was about honor and duty, using one's strength and skill to uphold justice and protect the innocent. Beyond these moral and ethical expectations, the code of chivalry also had a practical aspect, providing a set of rules for conduct in warfare. Knights were expected to respect the rights of prisoners, avoid unnecessary violence, and honor the terms of truces and treaties. They were also expected to show respect and courtesy to their fellow knights, even those on the opposing side. The training of a knight was not just about physical skill and martial prowess, but also about learning this code of chivalry. Young boys training to become knights would learn about these ideals from their mentors and teachers, learning the rules of chivalry and valuing honor and duty above personal gain. While the ideal of the chivalrous knight was not always met in reality, as knights were human and subject to the same temptations and weaknesses as any other, the ideals of chivalry provided a benchmark, a standard to strive for. Many knights took these ideals to heart and strove to live their lives in accordance with them. The code of chivalry had a profound impact on the culture and society of the Middle Ages. It influenced people's thoughts on warfare, honor, and the responsibilities of those in power. It also shaped perceptions of gender and social roles. Chivalry promoted a specific vision of masculinity, valuing strength, courage, and honor. Simultaneously, it fostered a vision of femininity, emphasizing virtue, modesty, and the need for protection. In essence, a medieval knight's life extended beyond combat. It encompassed living up to a set of ideals, striving to embody virtue and honor. The code of chivalry served as a guiding framework, dictating knights' behavior and attitudes. While demanding, it offered a vision of a noble and virtuous life, characterized by service and sacrifice. As we explore the life of a medieval knight further, we'll delve into the rituals and traditions that define their existence. We'll examine the ceremony of knighthood, the significance of heraldry, and the role of tournaments in a knight's life. For now, let's appreciate the complexity and depth of the chivalrous code and its profound influence on the life and identity of a medieval knight. As we journey deeper into the medieval world, the sun sets, casting an orange glow over the picturesque castle with its towering stone walls. Knights return from training or prepare for a jousting tournament. The knight brings its own set of responsibilities and rituals, just as important as those of the day. The evening meal or supper holds great significance in a knight's life. After a grueling day of training, combat practice, or jousting matches, this hearty and nutritious meal was a well-deserved reprieve. Knights' diets were primarily composed of bread, meat, and vegetables, complemented by ale or wine. They would gather in the castle's great hall, seated at a long wooden table marked by their rank. The highest-ranking knights occupied the closest seats to the lord of the castle, while lower-ranking knights sat farther away. Entertainment during the meal came in the form of minstrels playing lutes and singing songs of bravery and chivalry. These songs served as both entertainment and education, imparting knights with the ideals of courage, loyalty, and honor through heroic tales. The music also uplifted their spirits, allowing them to relax and bond with their fellow knights. Supper was a time for conversation and strategic planning. Knights would discuss the day's events, share stories of past battles, or devise strategies for future engagements. This was an invaluable opportunity for younger knights to learn from their more experienced counterparts, absorbing valuable knowledge that would aid them in their future endeavors. After the meal, knights retired to their quarters for rest, but rest didn't always mean sleep. Many spent their evenings in quiet contemplation or prayer, finding solace in their faith. Their faith provided moral guidance and spiritual strength, often leading them to pray to St. George, the patron saint of knights, seeking his protection and guidance. The knights' quarters were simple and functional, reflecting their austere lifestyle. They slept on straw mattresses covered with linen sheets, embodying the simplicity and practicality of their existence. A wooden chest would house their personal belongings, including their clothing and armor. Despite its simplicity, these quarters served as a private sanctuary for the knight, a place where they could find respite from their duties and responsibilities. Occasionally, a knight might be assigned the night watch duty, a crucial task that involved guarding the castle from potential threats. This duty was often rotated among the knights, ensuring that everyone shared the responsibility. The night watch was a lonely and often tiring task, but it was essential for the security of the castle and its inhabitants. As the night deepened, the castle would fall into a serene quietness. The knights, either on watch or in their quarters, would find themselves in a world separated from the hustle and bustle of the day. The stars would shine brightly above, a silent testament to the knight's unwavering dedication and commitment. Thus, the life of a medieval knight was not just about battles and glory. It was a life marked by discipline, duty, and devotion. The knights lived by a strict code of conduct, their days structured around their responsibilities and obligations. Despite the hardships and challenges, they carried out their duties with unwavering dedication, guided by their sense of honor and duty. As we conclude this section of our exploration into the life of a medieval knight, we carry with us a deeper understanding of their world, a world marked by courage and commitment, where every day was a testament to their enduring spirit.